All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. It's that time of the week, folks. My weekly picks in the world of the National Football League as we are up to week number 17, the final Sunday of 2023. And I want to take this time to wish each and every one of you a happy, healthy, and prosperous 2024. Thank y'all for all the support here in 2023. Like I always say, the best is always yet to come. And with that said, I got things started on the right foot last night. I picked the Cleveland Browns to win at home over the New York Jets. I did not expect the score to be as high as it was. I said Browns 23, Jets 13. But this Browns team is looking like they could be dangerous and very formidable come next month in the postseason as they were able to clinch a playoff spot. And of course, for the folks in Northern Ohio, they got to see it in person last night. And I guarantee you, they are still ecstatic about that. But with that said, we've got a good game on tap for tomorrow night, as well as all of the contests on Sunday. No Monday night game this week. And with that said, here are my picks for week number 17 in this NFL season. A big time showdown in North Texas tomorrow night as you've got the 10-5 Dallas Cowboys hosting the 11-4 Detroit Lions. Now, the Lions come to town flying high because this Lions team just went on the road, beat the Minnesota Vikings, and clinched the NFC North for the first time in franchise history, while it's their first division championship of any kind in 30 years. Now, there's going to be some folks that are saying, well, the Lions, they don't have anything to play for. Absolutely not. The Lions right now are tied with the Philadelphia Eagles and San Francisco 49ers for the best record in the NFC. So the Lions know they've got to keep their foot on the throttle as they could possibly have home field advantage throughout, depending on how things break over the next couple of weeks. On the flip side, for the Dallas Cowboys, they are nursing a two-game losing streak. They lost to some tough AFC East teams on the road the past couple of weeks, Buffalo and Miami, and now they're hopeful that some home cooking will allow them to get back on track. Dallas comes into this contest favored by 5.5 points. And if you look at the Cowboys, they are a completely different team at home this season in comparison to on the road. Why? Because the Cowboys play faster at home. And I say this because they're able to create more turnovers. They get out ahead on offense. So it puts the opposing team in chase mode. And that's advantage Cowboys and that's advantage Dallas defense for what they can do as far as going out there and rushing the passer. The Cowboys definitely have the ability to score points against this Lions defense. I think what the Cowboys are going to have to do, though, they're going to have to buckle up their chin straps because this is going to be a physical game because the Lions, they embody the mindset of their head coach, Dan Campbell. And Dan Campbell wants them to be a physical team. Yes, they can pass the ball all around the field, but this team can run the football effectively with David Montgomery and Jameer Gibbs. So this Dallas defense has to be wary of that, especially since they have struggled against the run at times this season. I think this contest is going to be a dandy, a back and forth affair. But I am going to give the edge to Dallas at home, and I'm going to take the Cowboys by the score of 30-27. Now, moving ahead to Sunday, you've got the 4-11 New England Patriots traveling to Orchard Park to take on the 9-6 Buffalo Bills. Buffalo comes into this contest favored by 2 touchdowns, and you want to say it's revenge time for the Bills because they went to Foxborough earlier this season. The Bills, at times have had, an issue as far as playing down to their opponent. They did once again to the New England Patriots that day. And when it was all said and done, Buffalo left on the wrong side of the ledger. But in recent weeks, it looks like the Bills have found their groove. And as they can smell a postseason berth, I don't see Josh Allen and company taking their foot off of the throttle in this one at home. Thus, I'm going to take the Bills by the score of 27-13. Now at Soldier Field in Chicago, you got the 6-9 Bears hosting the 7-8 Atlanta Falcons. Two teams, that is very interesting right now. You look at the Falcons; they're trying to hang on in the NFC South picture, while the Chicago Bears, they've looked like a better team since their slow start. Justin Fields is playing better. This team as a whole is coming together, and if you just have to wonder if these young Bears can keep this roster, somewhat the same for next year. Will they be able to take that next step? A lot of questions have to be answered in Chicago for this team, but nonetheless, they're trying to finish out the string on the right foot. Like I said, Atlanta is looking to hang around in the playoff picture in the NFC South. But you look at this contest, the Falcons quarterback issues going back and forth between Desmond Ritter and Taylor Heineke this year. They're 2-5 on the road, and it's a 37-degree game time kickoff. Not a lot of good things for the Falcons that I just mentioned. Thus, I'm going to take the Bears by the score of 27-23. Now, in Indy, you got a battle of two teams trying to hang around things in the AFC. The 8-7 Colts are going to host the 7-8 Las Vegas Raiders. And for the Colts, clearly they're in a better playoff position as far as their chances go than the Raiders right now. First of all, if the season ended today, the Colts would have the last wild card in the AFC. Secondly, you're talking about a three-way tie between Jacksonville, Indy, and Houston atop the AFC South. So the Colts know, listen, if we go out there and take care of our business, we could be postseason bound. But nonetheless, it won't be easy because you're taking on a very inspired Raiders team under interim head coach Antonio Pearson. Of course, he got a lot of leverage as far as possibly becoming the full-time head coach of the Raiders when he led this team on the road this past Christmas Day against the defending Super Bowl champions and pulled off the upset. One thing we know for sure with this Raiders team under Antonio Pierce, they're going to play hard, they're going to be physical, they're going to leave it all out there, but they have to get more out of their passing game in order to get a second consecutive road win. I like the way that this Raiders defense is playing. Can they find a way to turn the football over from Colts quarterback Gardner Minshew? And like I've talked about Gardner Minshew in the past, he can throw you into a game, but he can also throw you out of a game. However, I think the Colts bounce back. We saw this team lose on the road against the Falcons last week, but I'm going to take Indy at home in this one by the score of 23-20. Now at MetLife Stadium, you got the 8-7 Los Angeles Rams making the trip across country to take on the 5-10 New York Football Giants. Los Angeles comes into this contest favored by 5.5, and there are a lot of people who are saying the Rams might be a team that a lot of teams don't want to face on the NFC side. Sean McVay has done a solid job this year with the Rams. Veteran quarterback Matthew Stafford is healthy. This defense with Aaron Donald up front is starting to get after people, and the Rams are running the football. On the flip side, for the Giants, the Giants are a team that's trying to play out the string, and they're trying to figure out which direction they're headed in for 2024. Looks like the Tommy DeVito run as Giants starting quarterback is over, and now head coach Brian Daboll has gone back to Tyrod Taylor. I don't think Tyrod Taylor is going to be with the Giants for 2024, but nonetheless, at least in this contest, he probably gives them a better chance to beat the Rams than Tommy DeVito does. But when it's all said and done, the Giants, one thing for sure that we know, they're going to give you 100% effort under head coach Brian Daboll, but it's not going to be enough in this one. I'm going to take the Rams by the score of 27-19. The kid, what's going on? You're saying, let's go Giants. I appreciate the Yankee logo as well. And it's one of those things. And, please feel free to comment on what I'm about to say here. Yankee fans and Giants fans tend to go head to head, and like hand in hand, I mean. And then, in the New York area, it always seems like Jets fans and Mets fans are always linked as well. So please, chime in with your thoughts on that one. Want to hear if you're a Giants fan slash Yankees fan. Well, let me rephrase that. You already said you're a Giants fan, but then the Yankee logo. but I'm sure you probably have a couple of things otherwise to say sports wise with that. So please feel free to drop something in there. Now, staying in the NFC, you've got the 3-12 Arizona Cardinals looking to play spoiler as they go to the link to take on the 11-4 Philadelphia Eagles. And for Philly, I keep saying, well, you know what? Maybe they could finally get it turned around. It's one of those where the Eagles. It hasn't been pretty all season long, but they're still 11-4, and at this point, maybe this is who they are. I say this because it wasn't pretty last week when the Eagles got that win over the Giants, but they were able to stop the bleeding in their three-game losing streak and get back into the win column. Now, this Eagles defense, what are they going to do against this Arizona offense led by Kyler Murray? And I say this excuse me, because where this Eagles defense was a strength for this team last year when they went to the Super Bowl, it hasn't really been the case this year. A lot of inconsistency. Again, this team lost both of their coordinators from that NFC Championship team, and to me, I still think that they're searching for their ways. You have an Arizona team that is looking to finish on a positive note, but it's not going to be easy against this Eagles team. They're 6-1 at home. They're 12-point favorites at the link in this one. And I think Philly will take care of their business as I'm going to take the Eagles by 10, 34-24. Now in Tampa at Raymond James Stadium, you've got the 8-7 Tampa Bay Buccaneers hosting the 7-8 New Orleans Saints. And don't look now, but the Bucks could be on the verge of wrapping up the NFC South. And this is a credit to them because coming into the season, a lot of people were talking about the Bucks possibly tanking, looking to rebuild post Tom Brady. That has not been the case. Baker Mayfield is coming in there, giving them, some solid reps at quarterback. You've got two studs at wide receiver, and Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. And this defense, this cover two under Todd Bowles, is taking care of their business. We saw this Bucks team go on the road, earlier this season and get the best of New Orleans, who has been one of the biggest underachieving teams, in my opinion, this season, especially on the offensive side of the ball. The Saints have simply lacked cohesion all season long on offense, and I think that trend continues in this one, as I'm going to take Tampa Bay to hold serve at home by the score of 24-20. Now, in FedEx Field, or at FedEx Field in Landover, Maryland, rather, you got the 11-4 San Francisco 49ers taking on the 4-11 Washington Commanders. The Niners come into this contest favored by 13 and a half, and they are looking to get back on track as they got steamrolled at home this past Monday night, courtesy of the Baltimore Ravens. We saw Brock Purdy throw four interceptions. The Niners threw five overall, once you count the one thrown by Sam Darnold. And this defense did not have an answer for Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson. I think the Niners need to get back to what they do best, and that's run the football. The Niners didn't really have that swag, if you will, in the contest against the Ravens, and I think they need to get back and establish their ground attack. They also got to try to find a way to start flying around the football once again defensively. Now, it all signs pointed to Jacoby Brissett being the starting quarterback. It's questionable now with a hamstring issue for Washington. And if Ron Rivera has to go back to Sam Howell at quarterback, that fits right into the mold of what San Francisco wants to do, because Sam Howell holds the football a little bit too long, and you have questions on this Washington offensive line, as Sam Howell has been sacked early and often and very common during this season. And if he's in there, or regardless if it's Jacoby Brissett, I still like the Niners in this one. I'm going to take San Fran by the score of 33-17. Now in Jacksonville, you got the 8-7 Jaguars hosting the 2-13 Panthers. Battle of two teams that came into the National Football League together back in 1995. But clearly things are different this year for the Jags and the Panthers. The Panthers, they're trying to finish on a positive note after a very disappointing season. The expectations were there heading into the season for Jacksonville. They started off strong, but this team has spiraled downwards. And then, of course, they lost starting quarterback Trevor Lawrence in their loss last week to the Bucks with a shoulder injury, and because of that, for the first time in his pro career, he is not going to make the start for Jacksonville, as it's going to be CJ Beathard. Now, aside from Trevor Lawrence not being available in this one, Jacksonville needs to get back on track because they've plain and simple, they got punched in the mouth on the road by Tampa Bay last week. And I want to see how this Doug Peterson team is going to respond at home. One thing is for sure, Carolina has only won 2 games this year, but they're not going to be an easy out. And if Jacksonville is going to hold them off, I think they're really going to have to work for it. But I think Jacksonville has enough in the tank to get it done. Thus, I'm going to take the Jags by the score of 20-19. Now, a big one in the AFC that a lot of people are talking about on Sunday, as you have the 11-4 Baltimore Ravens traveling to take on the 12-3 Miami Dolphins, with first place atop the AFC on the line. Now, you look at both of these teams, and it's just all about speed. You think about the speed and elusiveness of Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson, and then of course the speed and elusiveness of Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hill. In recent years, the Dolphins have typically found a way to give this Ravens team problems. You go back to last season, Baltimore jumped out to that big lead at home before Miami rallied to shock them. And I look at it like this: both of these teams are relentless. And I say they're relentless because of the offensive firepower that they have. Tyreek Hill is always a play away. Lamar Jackson is arguably one of the most captivating players in National Football League history, especially in this current era with what he can do with his athleticism. And he's always a play away, a lot of talent around him. And because of that, I think the onus is going to be on the defenses. Which defense will be able to limit the opposing offense to field goal attempts as opposed to allowing them to get touchdowns? That's what the big difference for me in this contest is going to be. Baltimore is favored by 3.5 at home. Some people they think that's a little bit low, but I'll tell you like this: Miami is a legit team, and they got to feel good about themselves after they beat the Dallas Cowboys at home on Sunday. These two teams are meeting right here, but it would not surprise me to see either one of them have to face off with one another come next month in the postseason. I think this is going to be a pretty good game, arguably one of the best from the weekend. Most people are picking Baltimore. I'm going with the upset here. I'm going to take Miami over Baltimore by the score of 34-30. Now in Houston, you have the 8-7 Texans hosting the 5-10 Tennessee Titans. And for Houston, big boost as they get their starting quarterback CJ Stroud back, as he is out of concussion protocol. Excuse me. The Texans have been dealing with a lot of injuries as of late, but getting CJ Stroud back is huge because we're talking about a guy who more than likely is going to be the offensive rookie of the year. And I take Houston in this contest by the score of 23-16. Now you got the 8-7 Seattle Seahawks hosting the 8-7 Pittsburgh Steelers. And for both of these teams, they're looking to hang around in the playoff picture in their respective conferences. And if you're Seattle, clearly you're on better footing in the NFC than Pittsburgh is in the AFC, just due to the depth of the AFC this year. Now, for Pittsburgh, this offense looked a lot different with Mason Rudolph at quarterback last weekend against the Bengals, as opposed to Mitchell Trubisky. You look at this contest right here for Pittsburgh. Jalen Warren and Najee Harris, especially Jalen Warren, have to be important in this game because I like the way that Jalen Warren is running with the football right now. And what can he, along with Najee Harris, do against this Seahawks defense? I think it's going to be important for Pittsburgh to dictate things with the line of scrimmage, try to win the time of possession, and limit how much their defense is on the field. But nonetheless, I think this is going to be a back and forth affair between two teams that are trying to get over the hump and get into the postseason. Seattle is favored by 3.5 points at home, and I'm going to take the Seahawks in this one by the score of 27-20. Now in Denver, you've got the 7-8 Broncos hosting the 5-10 Los Angeles Chargers. And of course, for Denver. There's plenty of controversy right now, just due to the fact that head coach Sean Payton has decided to bench veteran quarterback Russell Wilson in favor of Jarrett Stidham. We saw this last year from Jarrett Stidham when he replaced Derek Carr with the Vegas Raiders, as Derek Carr was on his way out of town by former head coach Josh McDaniels. But nonetheless, clearly Denver has been a big disappointment this season. The same can be said for the Chargers. And of course, Brandon Staley has already been shown the door as their head coach. Now, after giving up 63 points in a previous game against the Raiders, we saw the Chargers have a much more spirited effort last week, even in defeat at home against the Buffalo Bills. Denver could, they still are alive in the postseason picture, but I think it's an uphill battle. Two teams that are trying to finish out the string here. The Broncos are favored by 3.5 at home, and I'm going to take Denver by 4 in this one by the score of 17-13. Now, a rematch of the last two AFC championship games. And of course, this game was slated at this point of the season because it was expected to have postseason implications. But of course, the injury to Joe Burrow, the Bengals starting quarterback, has somewhat changed things. But nonetheless, you've got the 8-7 Cincinnati Bengals traveling to Arrowhead to take on the 9-6 Kansas City Chiefs. For the Bengals, they are still alive and well in the playoff picture in the AFC, but quarterback Jake Browning, after a bad outing against the Pittsburgh Steelers last weekend, he definitely wants to get back on track for the Bengals. For the Chiefs, it's just one of those scenarios. You know what? They have to realize they're going to get everybody's best effort on a Sunday to Sunday basis as the defending Super Bowl champions. Not only that, but a lot of the issues that were able to be masked last year by this team have shown up. Issues on the offensive line, inconsistency from the receivers, and you're seeing a lot of frustration from this team. Go figure that Kansas City is relying on their defense to keep them in contest, and I think their defense is going to do a solid job once again for them in this contest. Patrick Mahomes will find a way. I don't see him losing once again at home. And because of that, I'm going to take the Chiefs in this one by the score of 24-16. And finally, on Sunday Night Football, you've got a battle of 7 and 8 teams in the NFC North, as you have the Packers traveling to Minneapolis to take on the Vikings. And of course, I just mentioned two teams that are trying to hang around in the playoff picture. Both of these teams need this contest, especially Green Bay, as they're down in the standings slightly in comparison to Minnesota. The Vikings are going with Jaron Hall, the rookie at quarterback. Obviously, a lot of questions for the Vikings at quarterback once Kirk Cousins was for the season with an injury. This is a Jekyll and Hyde game, as you got two Jekyll and Hyde teams. You simply don't know what you're going to get from either the Packers or Vikings in a game to game basis. Now, you look at this contest right here. Minnesota comes in favored by a point. I think this is going to be a back and forth affair throughout. The last team to possess the football will win. And I'm going to take the Packers on the road in this one by the score of 24-23. So, folks, those are my picks for week number 17 in this NFL season. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank all of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you haven't already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now, you can check it out, drop a line, and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I'm signing off. I'm saying take care. Thanks again. Have a healthy and happy new year. And thanks once again for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.